The sky over Florida was turned off in 1 second. In Nevada, the earth opened up all by itself, and in China, workers dropped their construction site in a panic and ran away, as if they had dug down to something that should not have been touched. And the strangest thing is not even that, but the fact that suddenly there are too many of such cases. Today, the most inexplicable footage of recent times. Somewhere there is a simple explanation and I will tell it, and somewhere, decide for yourself. I wish everyone a pleasant viewing. In Israel recently, little feels ordinary and people have begun to notice strange coincidences around them. Hundreds of crows are gathering over public and abandoned places, circling and watching in complete silence. This does not look random, rather the opposite, as if something is pulling them there on purpose. Locals do not attribute this to ordinary bird behavior. Many see this as a sign connected with everything that is already happening. And if it goes on like this, some seriously fear that the future will arrive earlier than anyone expects. High above Dubai, an ordinary rainy day took a turn where no one expected. The streets were already flooded, but soon something completely strange began. From the sky near the Burj Khalifa, fish began to pour down, falling out of a single strange cloud. Locals looked at this, not believing their eyes, and did not understand how such a thing was even possible. Scientists most likely would have found an explanation. Strong tornadoes over the water know how to lift small creatures into the air and carry them away for many kilometers, only to drop them later along with the rain. But to those who stood under this rain, the fish falling from the sky seemed like something for which there is no place in the familiar world. At a construction site in Brazil, an excavator operator noticed something completely unearthly. The ground under the machine seemed to come alive, rippling and swaying like liquid. The soil moved in waves, as if the earth was slowly breathing. He could not explain this, but here is what is actually behind this: soil liquefaction. This happens when water-saturated soil temporarily loses its strength and begins to behave almost like water. Even knowing the physics, seeing it with your own eyes is a completely different matter. The ground under your feet suddenly ceases to be something reliable and motionless. Canadians went out into the street at night and rested their gaze on a sky that refused to make sense. One piece of it filled with thick pink purple and began to spin. Clouds slowly rotated around a dark center, as if they were being sucked inside. It did not look like weather at all. It looked like a funnel opening right above the city. People filmed this from roofs, not believing their eyes, and the one who posted the video captioned it with just 3 words: "What is generally happening?" A sky that seemed to slightly open into somewhere else. In Western Australia, the sky suddenly filled with a heavy, alarming red, and no one was ready for this. People came out of their houses to meet an ordinary day and rested their gaze on a horizon that looked like the end of times. Videos flew around instantly and only added to the confusion. There was no obvious danger, but everything felt wrong to the gut. Later, this was connected with the cyclone Narelle. Dust raised by the wind had painted the firmament, but many refused to believe that the matter was only in the dust and saw in this a warning, an echo of what was already unfolding in the world. In the town of Antioch, people were dumbfounded. A huge hovering palm hung over the clouds and they managed to film it on their phones. A figure in the shape of a hand held in the sky for several minutes and then slowly melted away. Forecasters explained it simply, saying it was an unusual cloud plus the play of changing light. This did not convince the locals. The shape was too exact, too clear for an accident. Many saw in it something divine, a sign that could not be written off as ordinary cloudiness. 5 fingers in the sky and each in its own place. Drivers were driving through the desert of Nevada, not expecting anything special, until something on the side of the road forced them to brake. By the road stood a massive dark block, covered from top to bottom with creepy figures, skulls and distorted human bodies carved deep into the material. This is on Route 62, right at the edge of the road. In the very center sat a strange glowing sphere, surrounded by something like charred tentacles reaching outwards. The person filming stubbornly repeated that all of this is real and walked around the block from all sides, proving it. Who made it, how it ended up there, and what it is supposed to mean, no one knows. And no one, it seems, is eager to find out. In a small Brazilian town, people raised their heads and saw something for which they found no words. A face appeared above a cloud, and many immediately recognized Jesus in it. Clear, impossible to confuse with anything else. And when it seemed that it could not get any stranger, directly overhead a soft glowing ring formed, a halo, sitting exactly in its place. It just hung there, without moving, while amazed people stood below. Whether you believe in signs or not, to look at this and call it just a cloud comes out with difficulty. Back in the year 2020, residents of North Carolina noticed something slicing right through the sky. A bright beam stretched from the clouds straight up, perfectly straight, as if something was descending or, conversely, being drawn upwards. It came right out of the cloud. Cameras turned on instantly and the video spread quickly. Someone decided that something otherworldly was hiding in the cloud. Someone simply threw up their hands, a straight pillar of light from the ground to the clouds, and not a single version on which everyone would agree. A man in northern Texas came out of his house before an approaching thunderstorm and caught something that had never been seen here. The whole sky turned thick pink, not a patch, not an edge of a sunset, a wall of pink from edge to edge as far as the eye could see. Forecasters threw up their hands, the authorities remained silent, and the thing that hooked people the most was something else: how incredibly peaceful and quiet it looked, for a phenomenon for which there was absolutely no explanation found, as if someone had covered the entire county with pink glass and forgot to say why. Against the backdrop of tension with the United States of America, people in Iran were waiting for at least some sign. And they say they waited until they got one. Figures emerged in the sky above the clouds, several silhouettes as if riding on horses, and they moved across the firmament. Someone saw in this a message from above, the help of a higher power. Someone doubted that their eyes were not deceiving them. The same video some watched with tears of hope, others squinting with distrust. What it really was? A cloudy play of light or something more? Everyone decided for themselves. In Switzerland, crowds poured out onto the streets because of one strange picture. Two huge towers stood side by side, and right between them from above burned the symbol of an eye, as if watching everyone who had gathered below. Part of the townspeople perceived this as a holiday. They came, rejoiced, saw in the eye something holy and protective. But not everyone. Many who later watched this video on the network shivered from what they saw, called the whole staging ominous, and advised to stay away. The same eye was protection for some, a threat for others, and they are still arguing about it. A traveler in the desert of Nevada stumbled upon something that does not fit through any gates. A huge stone was just hanging, slightly above the sand, and nothing underneath it. No support, no stand, but even that is not the strangest thing. Under the stone, perfectly pressed into the sand, lay an intricate pattern. Circles inside circles, lines so precise that they looked mechanical. As soon as he reached out his hand and touched it, everything disappeared. A few seconds later, it appeared again. The traveler backed away, and the mystery remained hanging in the air along with the stone. A worker inside a building was already getting ready to go home after his shift when he noticed something for which he found no name. A strange flowing object floated in the air, constantly changing its outlines without any constant form. It did not look solid, rather a glowing clot drifting on its own. It moved unnaturally, as if it was thinking about something. The worker froze for a second and chose another exit. He did not stay to wait and find out what it was, and perhaps he did the right thing. In Beijing, after a completely ordinary downpour, something strange happened and no one was able to explain it. All the cars turned out to be plastered with worms, large ones. They stuck to the glass, wrapped around the mirrors, covered the metal roofs, as if they had been poured from above by a bucket. The person filming cannot squeeze out a word, just moves the camera from car to car because they all look exactly the same. How did hundreds of worms end up on roofs after a rain? Beijing did not receive an answer. Most often, such a thing is written off as a tornado that picks up living creatures from the ground and drops them to the side, but even this is hard to believe when you see everything with your own eyes. The sky over Florida changed in 1 second. Just now it was clear, and now the clouds have drawn over everything so rapidly that passers-by decided a thunderstorm is coming. An everyday matter, but then came that for which there is no name. From a height, a wide blue beam struck the ground, even, straight, as if something was aiming at a target and found it, and nearby, thick dark smoke poured from the clouds. Not upwards like from a fire, downwards. It flowed to the ground as if it was being poured from above. No explanations from the services followed, only the blue pillar of light, the black smoke crawling to the ground, and the sky, which seemed to be turned off right in front of the eyes of the whole city, remained. Residents of a certain Californian town were whiling away an ordinary evening until someone threw back their head. Between the clouds hung a dark spot, a dense figure that should not have been there. Everything around was moving as always, and it stood dead still, motionless. Then it began to glow. From the inside, a warm golden light emerged, flaring up brighter and brighter, as if something was preparing to step outside right through it. And at the very moment when it seemed that it was about to appear, the light went out. The figure melted back into the clouds. Not a trace, not a sound, as if no one upstairs had turned anything on at all. A small Canadian town was not ready for such a thing. From the depths of the clouds rolled out a round glow and slowly burned itself into a perfect ring of fire. It just hung in the sky, rotating, pulsating, breathing. It did not look like weather at all. It looked like something slightly opening from that side. People stood with their heads thrown back and could not take their eyes off it. And then the ring disappeared, all at once, without smoke, without a flash. The sky became ordinary again, as if a fiery circle had not been burning in the air above the city a minute ago. Nature does not draw such rings. That means someone else drew it. One morning, a farmer went out into the yard for her usual chores and immediately felt something wrong under her feet. The ground was moving. It went in waves, bounced, as if under her boots was not soil but a giant sheet of jelly. On the video, it is visible how she walks across her field, and the entire surface rocks and sways with her every step. And here is what does not fit in the head. On this land, such a thing had not happened even once in all the years. And after a few minutes, this inexplicable ripple simply subsided, and the field became firm again, as it is supposed to be. Seismologists that morning did not record a single tremor in the district. Drivers in Austin slowed down, letting a convoy pass. Military trucks were transporting a huge ring structure under guard, completely covered with unfamiliar symbols. People braked and took out their phones. At first, the ring seemed dead, as if something ancient was simply being transported from place to place. And then the inside of the ring lit up. Inside, a deep blue light began to spin, flaring up brighter and brighter as it moved down the highway. The military did not say a word. They just rolled it further down the road, as if there were not dozens of people standing around with cameras turned on. Near Nairobi, residents of one town woke up and saw something for which they found no explanation. The earth split. A deep crack went right through their land. No thunderstorms the day before, not a single alarming sign. People gathered at the fault and tried to understand what generally happened. They called specialists, but even they hesitated with an articulate answer. The crack just was there, long, dark, cutting the familiar landscape in two. And here is a detail from which a chill runs down the back. The entire East Africa lies on a huge fault in the Earth's crust, the East African Rift. The continent here is slowly, millimeter by millimeter, diverging in two, and one day a new ocean may appear in this place. So sometimes such cracks are not a glitch. It is the Earth showing what it has been busy with all this time, while we are not looking. A road. On one side it pours like a wall, on the other it is dry and sunny, as if an invisible wall has stood in the middle of the highway between two worlds. A guy filmed this in Dallas, the state of Texas, and here is why it happens like this in reality. Rain clouds are often very small and gathered in one place, and not smeared all over the sky. The wind drives the moisture into a tiny dense area, and there a downpour lashes, and a few steps to the side the sky remains clear and dry. It is strange to stand on this border, having stepped with one foot into the rain and with the other into a dry summer. This was filmed in Romania, and none of those who saw it live could move from their spot. A huge blazing circle opened in the sky. The people below were seriously frightened. It seemed that now it would begin to grow and swallow everything around. The circle hung for a short while and slowly faded, as if it had never been there. Locals are certain it was a sign, and that it will return again. A ring of fire that held in the air exactly long enough to be remembered for a whole lifetime. In the desert of Nevada, a drone filmed something that takes your breath away. A strip of land several kilometers wide opened exactly in the middle. No one knows what caused it and why it happened exactly here. Someone will suggest an ordinary ground shift, but here is the strangeness. No tremors, no underground commotion in the district was recorded by anyone. The earth simply parted all by itself. In the arid west of the United States of America, such a thing sometimes happens without any earthquakes. When groundwater is pumped out from under the ground for years, the voids inside inside sag, and the surface burst with long seams, sometimes for kilometers. But no one has given confirmation that the matter is exactly in this. The Earth opened up and is in no hurry to explain why. A guy was walking along a forest path and stumbled upon something that made him immediately doubt whether it was worth going further. Right in front of him, a dark black object appeared and disappeared in plain sight of everyone, flickering, as if it could not quite hold on in this world. The shape did not resemble anything recognizable. By the man's face on the video, it is visible how uneasy he feels. He turned around and laughed. And honestly speaking, that was the most reasonable thing that could be done. Chichen Itza is one of the most ancient and mysterious structures on the planet. It is thousands of years old, and still no one really understands how and why it was built. And here is what happened there. On an absolutely clear day, right next to the pyramid, a huge dusty vortex rose from nowhere, spinning like a pillar. Tourists were dumbfounded. Everyone grabbed their cameras. And the creepiness here is not in the vortex itself. The ancient Maya believed that Chichen Itza are the gates between worlds, a passage between the living and something completely different. The vortex rose exactly at these gates. In the snowy expanses of Greenland, the silence was suddenly cut by a strange sound, as if somewhere they were blowing into a colossal trumpet. A group of tourists froze in place. Locals call it the hum. Someone believes that the sound comes from the heavens as a warning. To hear how it rolls over the icy desert is an unearthly sensation, as if it is coming from another world, whether it is a natural curiosity or something much stranger. But after it, everyone involuntarily thought about what is actually up there. Similar trumpet sounds from the sky have been caught more than once all over the world, and most often earthly culprits were found for them. Metal humming in the wind, the friction of ice, distant industrial machinery. Only to those who stand in the middle of the icy silence and hear this above them, it does not become calmer from such a list. Deep in the night near Orlando, drivers were crawling along the highway in thick fog when the impossible appeared on the side of the road. A huge pirate ship stood there, as if it had been taken and placed there out of nowhere. People slowed down, struggling to understand what they were even seeing, and then it disappeared just as suddenly. Someone says, a glitch, a bug of reality. Someone is certain that something much stranger stands behind this. A sailing ship that was not there a minute ago, and a minute later was gone again. A man was filming the most ordinary weather moment when something began to emerge over the city that made him feel cold inside. A huge face was forming in the clouds, almost demonic, so detailed, so meaningful, with such clear features that to call it an accident is almost an insult to common sense, and the size alone frightened no less. It was not a small thing that needed to be completed in one's imagination. The face stretched across half the sky, as if a huge presence loomed over the whole city and looked down. Without a camera, no one would have believed this story. There are pictures that instantly split people in two. What appeared over Colombia was exactly like that. Over the town in the night sky, a huge shining cross flared up, and the reaction divided exactly in half. Half of the crowd felt a real blessing, as if the sign appeared exactly to them and exactly in their city. The second half grew cold with fear, certain that this was a direct warning. Something terrible is about to happen. A cross of such sizes does not appear out of nowhere just like that. Even those who argued about everything else agreed on this. A guy in Austin, the state of Texas, stayed up late and noticed a serious wrongness with the sky. Through the clouds flickered a strange light, not like a thunderstorm nor like lightning which he had seen before. It shifted and twisted in such a way that it did not fit into any frameworks. The outlines changed all the time, as if something was trying to break through from that side. Everyone who later saw this video said the same thing. It does not look like weather. It looks like a warning. People are used to looking for portals in the sky, but this one opened right underground. A worker took out one block, and what he saw below was like from scary stories. Red flame went into the depths, exactly the kind about which legends are retold in whispers. Nothing like this has anywhere to come from underground, and yet it was there, burning without any explanation. Those who later watched this video could not make ends meet, and even a specialist would have had to sweat, explaining what kind of fire blazed at the very surface where it should not be. One Texan does the same thing every winter. He takes a burner and chases the ice off the driveway, a familiar matter, but this time something went wrong. He brings the flame right to the snow and it does not melt. It turns black. Real snow melts from fire. This is basic physics. So what fell from the Texas sky this time? Someone is certain that Bill Gates stands behind the artificial precipitation, and this snow is also artificial. Someone objects. The snow is real. It is just that the meltwater goes inside the snowdrift, and the blackness is soot from the burner itself. Black streaks on white. And to this day, two camps that do not hear each other. A guy in New York went out for an ordinary walk, noticed pigeons on the sidewalk, and one of them forced him to stop. He comes closer and understands. This is not a real pigeon. This is a robot made to look absolutely alive, calmly sitting among real birds, as if it is supposed to be so. And here is what for some reason one does not want to think about aloud. Someone assembled it. Someone purposely put it here and tried to make it deceive everyone who walks by. A pigeon that looks at passers-by, and the passers-by do not guess that it is looking back. Over the city of Basel, the sky threw out something that had never been seen here even once. In a single patch of clouds, a strange and beautiful light caught fire, and so brightly and so evenly only in this spot that it seemed to detach itself from everything around, as if completely not from this world. Someone, having watched the clip, immediately called this a divine blessing, saying the light broke through from somewhere outside. Others stubbornly looked for a reasonable explanation and found absolutely nothing. One glowing window in the clouds, and two completely different truths about what it was. In Romania, people were whiling away the evening until someone raised their eyes and tore a whole crowd from their place, driving them across an open field. A huge, shining figure with arms spread wide arose in the sky, radiating light in all directions. And to everyone who looked, it seemed exactly like Jesus standing above them. People did not walk to it, they ran just to get closer. Everyone who was there that evening swears that what they saw was real. A crowd running across a field towards the light. This you cannot invent. The world is changing deeply and quickly, and the threats around at times seem apocalyptic. Revelation, one of the most controversial books of the Bible, is often read as a warning about the schedule of upcoming disasters. Many believe that it describes the path to a sudden and brutal turning point. Against the background of how rapidly everything is changing, from weather anomalies to global alarms, it seems to someone that the signs are already coming true. Reports of increasingly frequent and powerful storms have forced others to wonder, is this a coincidence? According to the text, as the seven seals break, humanity moves step by step to the final and unavoidable change. Towards the end of the year 1999, a quiet fear was crawling across the world. It was called the problem of the year 2000. It was believed that exactly at midnight, computers could fail. Banks, power grids, entire systems would collapse. Governments feverishly patched the code, spending billions behind the scenes. And so that very moment arrived, and nothing serious happened. Here is where the strangeness begins. Some are certain that there was no threat at all. Others that a huge catastrophe was quietly prevented, and we simply did not find out about it. What really happened that night behind the scenes, almost no one will clearly answer. One thing is known. On the quiet fixing of this bug around the world, according to various estimates, went hundreds of billions of dollars, money that would have been enough for the space program of an average country, and all for the sake of absolutely nothing happening at midnight. One night in Florida, a guy caught movement in the sky for which he could not pick a name. A bright glowing object floated evenly, leaving a trail behind it, only it was not an airplane, not a meteor, and there were no launches listed in the district that night. He managed to grab a camera and film this before the object went into the clouds. Not a single service ever came forward with an explanation. And for something of such size, floating so clearly through the Florida sky, this silence made everything only stranger. One evening in Saudi Arabia, people went out into the street and stood rooted to the spot. There were two suns in the sky at once, one in the east, another in the west, on completely opposite edges. What they saw did not fold into anything reasonable, and no one understood what they were generally looking at. Reactions were from shock to fear and to complete muteness, and they can be understood. Not every day does a second sun light up overhead. Nature, however, has its own tricks for this. Ice crystals high in the atmosphere know how to refract light in such a way that a bright double flares up next to the real sun. They call it a false sun, but to see it with your own eyes and calmly remember about crystals are tasks of different weight. A man in Texas once glanced up and was dumbfounded. The sky behaved completely not like the sky. A sharp line passed across it, as if reality itself was taken and ripped open. Through this cut behind the clouds, something flickered, something unfamiliar. Those who happened to be nearby filmed and could not decide whether this is a glitch in the atmosphere itself or whether something deeper hides there above us, a thin seam on the sky, and an insurmountable desire to understand what is behind it. Over Chicago, a camera caught something for which no one could pick an explanation. Among what looked like thousands of flies crawling across the sky, one object kept to itself. A single sphere exactly in the middle of the swarm, frozen, with such immobility and such intent, which the rest of the swarm did not have in the slightest, as if it was controlling the flies, or hiding among them and recording everything around. Thousands of darting dots, and one that was in no hurry to go anywhere. A swarm behaves like a living crowd. It twitches, scatters, converges again. It has no center and no goal. And this sphere seems not to obey the general rules. It hung like a float in boiling water exactly where it wanted. And the longer you look, the harder it is to shake off the thought that among the multitude of random movements, someone alone was moving consciously. In Serbia, a group of specialists declared something at which the majority would have laughed. Fire, they say, can flare up right on the snow, without fuel, without any source from the side. And they took it and checked. They struck a match over a patch of snow, and the flames swept out instantly. It turns out that under the frozen crust, methane can accumulate, that very gas that is many times more powerful than carbon dioxide in its greenhouse effect. One of its molecules holds heat roughly like 25 molecules of carbon dioxide. As soon as it breaks out and meets a spark, it flares up. It is a bit creepy to realize that the ground under your feet is not always as firm and quiet as it seems. A guy in Peru caught on camera something for which he himself did not find a name. A burning object fell vertically from the sky, leaving a fiery trail behind it. It went into the forest, and no one went to check. And if anyone did go, they did not bring back a word. The object simply fell, and the sky grew quiet again. What it was, a fragment, a meteor, something else, the forest never gave away. Sometimes the most alarming thing in such stories is not the flash in the sky, but the silence that ensues after. Last year in July, people in several places at once noticed something that knocked them out of their rut. Objects around lost their shadows, completely, wherever you stood and whatever time it was on the clock. Before going into a panic, this actually has an explanation. It is called Lahaina moon, and it is a real solar phenomenon that happens in the tropics twice a year. When the sun rises exactly overhead at a perfect right angle, shadows simply disappear under what casts them. To see this live is strange, but now you know. This happens only between the tropics, in a narrow strip of the planet where the sun is generally capable of rising to the very zenith. North or south of this belt, shadows without an owner simply do not exist. So if your shadow suddenly disappears, it is not worth panicking. In a cave in Peru, researchers stumbled upon something about which textbooks would prefer to keep quiet. An old book with the date, the year 1777. They opened it, and what they saw seemed abnormal to them. Detailed maps, drawn by hand, showed the transition from a flat Earth to a spherical one, step by step, as if it was happening right in front of their eyes. But something else hooks you. On the maps, there is Tartary, kingdoms and lands erased from official history. Who erased them and why? And why did exactly Peru remained the only place where this book survived? Questions to which the page with the date 1777 does not give an answer. In China, at a rural construction site, something was being built for a long time in complete secrecy. No one was allowed inside, and then something happened there, and all the workers, absolutely every single one, rushed away in panic. On the video, it is visible how they are running from the site. Locals are certain they dug as deep as possible and stumbled upon something underground that went, it seemed, for thousands of kilometers down, and this scared them to death. What was really there, perhaps, only time will show, and for now, it only remains to watch how people run from the pit that they themselves dug. Write in the comments which moment shocked you the most, and subscribe to the Top Facts channel for a selection of the most incredible facts and videos from all over the internet.